does God have the authority then? Does the power of God, his authority, does that exceed what we know already about his power that comes from his will, that is put out to whichever dimensions he wants to affect, like sending his son from the spiritual dimension, from being at his side into the world and appear as a man through a woman who never had relations with a man. That power that's going out, that intent, that will that is being satisfied, and the power that goes out, how does that play into that power? How does authority play a role in the power going out? Is it the source of the power that goes out? Is it greater than the power outlined in Jeremiah 55:11? Is it greater? Is authority greater than that power? Does authority sort out power and deny certain powers and allow certain powers to function? And if so, are we now on another chase to find the energy behind authority, if that's true? Because the energy that can choose and that can put down other desires, such as ours, that we can't pray for a Cadillac and get a Cadillac by the power of God if it is not consistent with his will. So if he says no, and he controls that, is God's authority more towards the root or source of his energy? Is his authority greater than the satisfaction of his will? Is it a higher divine capacity than God's will? How does authority fit into this scheme? Let's see if 1 John helps us a little bit more. 1 John chapter 1, we're going to see the amazement, how great was the coming out of the spiritual dimension and forming and shaping in such a way as that the corporeal dimension can evaluate it and participate. Let's take a look at that. 1 John chapter 1, verse 1 through 5. Somebody want to read that? Actually, 1 through 4. 1 John 1, 1 through 4.
That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at and our hands have touched, this we proclaim concerning the word of life. This life appeared, we have seen it and testified to it, and we proclaim to you the eternal life, which was with the Father and has appeared to us. We proclaim to you what we have seen and heard, so that you also may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with His Son, Jesus Christ. We write this to make our joy complete.
Okay, how does that help us? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that like a summary of what we've been looking at? The life appeared, transcending dimensions. The life appeared in the corporeal realm. We could touch it. We could hear it. We could see it. It was complementary to our sensibilities. God took on a form that was complementary, not antagonistic to our sensibilities. He was able to walk among us. This is what His power afforded Him. He created a world in which He could interact with as God. This is what God's power can do. This is how great and diverse it is, how far-reaching it can be. Okay? And so we have this going on, all right? And then we have in verse 5, we have again what Paul was experiencing earlier, in that he was struggling with it. So John struggling with verses 1 through 4, the reality, the truth of those verses, he was able to struggle in verse 5 with the message. Just like Paul, he could struggle with the message. He could bring it forward into darkness, into disbelief, unbelief, confusion. He could bring it forward, the message forward into that in the world. This is where God's power is functional, not with corporeal prayers getting answered. We spend a lot of time making corporeal prayers when we've done a little search today, and none of what we have looked at is corporeal. There's no physically moving mountains. There's no cars purchased or meals, food, nothing. Houses, clothing, fingernails, hairdos, fancy shoes. None of that is going on in anything we've read. It has nothing to do with it. God's power is very, very focused. And it can transcend dimensions and cause what His will is focused on. It comes in the form of a promise. If it comes out before it happens, it's a promise. It's the intent of His will, and we got introduced today the authority, what basis does it have with that power that God is displaying? How does authority hook up to that? What's authority have to do with God's power, His energy going forth? Remember what Christ said to Pilate in John chapter 19. Let's close on that. We've seen quite a bit now, and it should change how we see John chapter 19. We've looked at this a few times before, and we've talked about it. John chapter 19, verse 10. Since we're going to bring authority into it, can God's power accomplish what is being spoken about here? That's one question. Another question is, will it possibly happen because authority has said, yes, it can, but it will not? It's within the capacity of my power, but it is certainly not something I am authorizing. Somebody want to read 10 and 11 of 19 of John? John 19, 10 and 11.
Do you refuse to speak to me? Pilate said. Don't you realize I have power either to free you or to crucify you? Jesus answered, you would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin.
How does authority go with God's power? Or any power, even? Authority has a role in the dissemination, the going out of power. No one can do an end run with another will except that God has decided to allow it or cause it. What is Satan's power? Where does it stop? How is it different than God's? Can Satan make promises like God? Can we? Do we strive to make promises like God?